Welcome to Real Truth Real Quick. My name is Adam Tarnow, joined as always by Todd Wagner.
Hello, Adam. Hello, friends.
All right, Todd, question this week is this. What does it mean that an elder must be the husband of one wife?
This is a question that comes up a lot when we do elder conferences and things like that. Folks really want to know, and I'm glad they do because in the Bible, it says that an elder should be the husband of one wife. Let's read it.
Yeah.
This is in 1 Timothy 3. And why don't you read verses 1 and 2?
Yeah, it says, here's a trustworthy statement. If any man aspires to the office of overseer, it's a fine work he desires to do. An overseer then must be above reproach, the husband of one wife, temperate, prudent, respectable, hospitable, able to teach, and then it keeps going on.
Yeah, it does. And so there's a couple of options with this. So the husband of one wife might mean that certainly it has an application to the male headship of an elder, which we can maybe do a real truth real quick one time. Why do the leaders of the church need to be men? It doesn't mean women don't have a significant role. We've done some real truth real quicks on women. But that verse does seem to indicate, hey, it needs to be a male who, some people would say, who has to be married. And then others would say who has to be married only one time. In other words, if they're married and they become a widow, they can no longer serve in that role. Or if they were married to a woman who died and they got married again, they would no longer be the husband of one wife. They'll say, well, he used to be married to in previous parts of his life before his first wife died. All these things are possible interpretations. So let me explain a couple of things. Here's one of the easiest ways to let you know that what Paul's trying to do right here. In fact, if you even listen, when you went through it, it says that if any man aspires to be an overseer or an elder, same word, okay, it's a fine work he desires to do. And though he says that this is the requirement of an overseer, okay, that he must be above reproach. I am of the opinion that what he goes to do after this is describe what above reproach is. And so he's explaining the kind of life that this person is renowned for. So I want to just start before I qualify this a little bit. It doesn't say he must have always been the husband of one wife. Now I'm going to tell you what I would be careful before you run off and go, oh, good, that guy was married, divorced, and now is remarried, so he's the husband of one wife. I think that's not above reproach necessarily, okay? But it doesn't say in there specifically that he must currently be the husband of one wife, or he can't be an elder unless he's the husband of one wife. What Paul's just basically saying is, I'm going to tell you the kind of men that are above reproach. And that includes not guys just who have healthy and effective marriages, but that are temperate, prudent, respectable, hospitable, guys who obviously are sound in doctrine, able to teach, okay? And then it goes on with all kinds of other things, not being addicted to wine, because a guy addicted to wine is not above reproach.
Right.
But let me ask you, would you make Jesus an elder at your church?
Yeah, I hope so, yes.
I would think so,
Yeah.
okay? Never married. So I don't think that you can take the position that it means that you have to be married to be an elder. Paul even encourages people in 1 Corinthians 7 to remain as you are.
Yeah.
Okay? We did a real truth real quick on that, where Paul even says those that are married should act as if they're not. And so if you want to know what that means, there's a real truth real quick on that. The other thing it doesn't say here is that this needs to be who they always were. Would you make Paul an elder in your church?
Yeah.
I would too. But Paul, at one point, was a terrorist, okay, and a blasphemer. He was a murderer and somebody who mocked God and mocked the faith. So if you take a look at this, and I'm going to start at a very high level and say, we can't ever have an elder who's been divorced. You might want to also say you can never have an elder who's been like Paul. Now, I would tell you in my application, in our situation, the way that divorce, and no-fault divorce specifically, and the way people have treated marriage, I think there's a very high bar that we mock. There's lots of real truth real quicks on divorce, remarriage, and the meaning of Matthew 19 and Matthew 5. Watch those. But like in some of these societies where Paul moved in, probably most of the guys had lived very pagan lives, maybe even polygamous lives, certainly not chaste lives. And so the question is, though, when they become leaders of the church, there needs to be a clear transformation. And what they're renowned for at this particular moment is a life of holiness and morality where people go, it's clear that there's a different spirit that's leading that individual. I could make a case today that would still potentially be true, that there would be a situation where a man had actually been married before and maybe was divorced even, that could be an elder. Now, in our context here at Watermark, if I've got two candidates, one who, frankly, most people don't even know he was ever married before. For the last 25 years, right, this guy's been living a faithful one-wife kind of a life, chaste, faithful, but he was, previously married. I don't know if just based on a right understanding of 1 Timothy 3, I'd say that guy cannot be. But I would tell you, if there's other candidates that don't even have that other thing in their history, I would almost always go with that other candidate.
Yeah.
But I think the standard of 1 Timothy 3, if we're being honest, doesn't mean, and we can use Paul as an example, it doesn't mean that there's never been treachery and dishonor and disobedience to Christ in your history. It means that can't be how you're known today. You are above reproach. People say there's life change there. There's devotion there. There's morality there. That impurity and greed isn't even named among that guy's life. There are guys that I know that had been married before that grieve over their previous marriage, that live such godly lives that we would say other men ought to aspire to follow and imitate that man as he imitates Christ. But if you have a guy who also you can say that about, who doesn't have a previous marriage that they've been through, you might want to go with that guy. But if I'm being honest in the text, I can't say with certainty that a guy who has divorce at some point way in the background that no longer defines him, he's humble about, repentant of, that you can't make him an elder. Now, we have a group of elders here. Not all probably guys that lead with me as elder would necessarily subscribe to that.
Right.
But there are some contexts where that's all you got.
Yeah.
But a bunch of old pagans there in Corinth that, well, gosh, if we're going to find only guys that have had a pretty good history since birth, we don't have anybody to choose from.
Right.
And again, the guy who brought the gospel to them himself was a blasphemer and a murderer.
Yeah.
But Paul's life was by then well above reproach. I'm thankful in our context that we have options of men that by the kindness of God have been one wife man their whole life. But I'm not sure you can go to 1 Timothy 3 to demand it.
Yeah, that's good. Helpful answer, Todd. Thank you so much. Click on the show notes to see some of the other episodes that Todd referenced here. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll talk to you again next week.